The Emancipation Memorial is located at Lincoln Park on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and is meant to commemorate Abraham Lincoln and his passage and support for the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, both of which outlaw slavery. This monument aims to argue that Abraham Lincoln should be viewed as the great emancipator. The memorial presents this argument in several ways, including how Lincoln and the former enslaved person are depicted in the memorial, the written inscription, and its location. For one, Lincoln is depicted in a way that gives him the air of being the ultimate grantor of freedom, as he's shown to be standing over and freeing a former enslaved person who's kneeling for him, as if to paint Lincoln as a hero or god. Second, the inscription in the memorial helps to portray Lincoln as an ultimate grantor of freedom because the inscription credits freed slaves for the idea, funding, and construction of the memorial, noting specifically that the first donor used her first earnings in freedom to construct it. A separate inscription simply reads Emancipation. This inscription is meant to give great detail and praise not only to the founders of the memorial, but also to Lincoln. This is because the phrases like first earnings in freedom serve to praise Lincoln for granting these former slaves the ideological, financial, and personal freedom to create and contribute to this memorial. Third, the monument makes use of physical space, in this case a public park, to emphasize why Lincoln should be viewed as the great emancipator. This is because the monument is placed in the middle of a public park, which is also named after Lincoln, where everybody, regardless of race, color, or background, is allowed to make use of it.
The surrounding area contributes to the memorial as it is well placed in the center of the park while not being too extravagant or out of place. While not particularly religiously significant, it can be said that the location is sacred because of the memorial and the ideas that it portrays. Although the monument is a paternalistic portrayal of Lincoln freeing an enslaved person, when the inscription is read, one can infer just how sacred Lincoln and his act were to the newly freed enslaved people, as it was entirely funded by their donations.
All three of these aspects, when mixed together, attempt to present a case for why Lincoln should be viewed as the great emancipator, as they emphasize both his power as well as the freedom that he was able to grant to many through both relevant imagery, describing how the founders of the memorial had been directly helped by Lincoln, and how we are still able to exercise this freedom that he brought to many.
The community has generally viewed the monument positively as the park was also used during the 1960s for civil rights protests. Recently, however, because of how Lincoln and the enslaved person is depicted, some have started to dislike the monument as it portrays a paternalistic view of Lincoln that arguably disregards the efforts that enslaved people went through to gain their freedom.
This memorial, while it has little metaphorical significance, as it aims to be very direct in its portrayal of Lincoln, still has many appeals to pathos, ethos, and logos. For example, it has many appeals to ethos not only when it credits former slaves with the funding of the statue, but also when Frederick Douglass gave the keynote address at its opening. Both of these enhance the credibility of the statue to put Lincoln on such a pedestal, as it attempts to show that it has the resounding support of former slaves. The monument makes appeals to logos by being placed in a public park, which serves to further emphasize Lincoln's perceived wishes of freedom and equal opportunity for all. Finally, the memorial appeals to pathos in the way it depicts Lincoln in such a powerful, calm, and kind stance. By depicting him in such a way, the monument attempts to have viewers feel calm at the presence of such a great emancipator that the monument depicts.
There is an engravement on the front of the main statue. The engravement reads that the monument was dedicated to Lincoln and that it was funded solely by emancipated people, adding to the credibility of the memorial. The fact that the monument was funded exclusively by those who had most directly benefited from Lincoln's acts appeals to the gratefulness people had for Lincoln after the Emancipation Proclamation and the subsequent 13th Amendment. By having this engravement present, it demonstrates how important remembering Lincoln and his acts of emancipation were for many freed slaves.
In recent years, there's been some controversy surrounding the memorial. Some claim that despite the memorial's supposedly emancipatory message, it actually reinforces racist ideas. To them, the juxtaposition of the two figures shows a troubling narrative. Rather than having the two figures on equal footing, Lincoln is standing above a kneeling African American, handing him freedom. Detractors believe that this contributes to a white savior narrative, which devalues the work and struggle of African Americans to free themselves from slavery. Indeed, the memorial was overseen by an all-white committee
and sculpted by a white man.
Is there any particular reason that you're here?
I'm visiting here with my family, and I also would like to kind of know the history of America.
Do you guys have any connection with the memorial?
No.
Do you have anything?
No.
What feature stands out the most to you about this and why?
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, we were just talking about because I had a class last semester about all the presidents in the American history,
Yeah.
and it says like about Lincoln, and obviously he's such a great man in getting the rights for everybody, but he also said, and he personally had laborers in his farm. So we're just talking about how like there's some controversies. I don't know. And such a great man, and he like on the way he's trying to pursue the rights for other people, he has to get his way around it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what is your favorite part of the memorial?
I like this statue. It's pretty cool.
What is, to you at least, what is the most important aspect of it?
What do you think?
I think Lincoln's face is
Yeah.
an icon, so
That's
it's recognizable.
Yeah, that's good.
everywhere.
What do you guys think the message of the memorial is?
I think all memorial is about remembering things.
Yeah.
I think it's a that moment needs to be remembered in the history because it's such a big turning point
Yeah,
for the whole nation.
that's good. And why do you guys think the memorial's important?
I think memories turns to be short and people forget things quite easily. So if you have some, say like solid things, either it's memorial or it's architecture or it's a landscape that is physically there, every time you go around it, you see it, you'll remember like the history is right there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good kind of like anchor point.
That makes sense. All right, thank you guys very much.
So how are we to judge this memorial? What was once a symbol of racial progress now seems paternalistic and misguided. In 1876, the Emancipation Memorial stood as a monument to the achievements of one of the United States' greatest leaders. In 2019, it seems less a monument and more of a relic, a product of a time when most people thought that freedom was not taken by the powerless, but rather given by the powerful. Ultimately, like all art, the statue is a product of its time. We should strive to see it as a reminder of our past and not a prescription for our future.